Okay, so we're going to start over.
Yeah.
Apologize for that. My name is Clay Hensley. Thank you for joining us today for our presentation on preparing for university study in Ireland. My name is Clay Hensley. I'm the director of College Board International. We're a not-for-profit educational organization headquartered here in New York. I'm accompanied here today by my friend Michelle Dervin, who's the USA Manager for Education in Ireland. Michelle, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Clay. As Clay has said, my name is Michelle Dervin. I'm the US Manager for Education in Ireland. We are an Irish government organisation that promotes Irish universities and colleges all over the world. So our job is to help students like you and parents and high school college counsellors to find out all of the information that they need to know about how to apply to Irish universities, what they can study at Irish universities, and what the student experience is going to be like when they arrive in Ireland.
Thank you, Michelle. So I hope all of you here today, I'm very pleased that you're looking at Irish universities, at opportunities at these great universities that the College Board wants to support. I mentioned that the College Board is a not-for-profit membership association. We're headquartered here in New York, and we're best known for programs you're very likely already engaged in, programs like SAT or AP. So I'm going to talk today about how, as you begin your journey in college planning and looking for options both in the U.S. and abroad, how Irish universities can fit into that process so that no matter where you're applying, no matter what tools you're using, how they can be applied and used to get into Irish universities among the best in the world. So we'll start with our first slide. Here is our agenda. We're going to talk about how you get started, factors to consider when choosing university, especially outside of the U.S. We're going to talk about some College Board resources that can apply to both colleges in Ireland as well as universities outside of Ireland, and what you should do next. What are the next steps on your journey to college planning? So before you get started, Michelle, I'd like to talk to you. You went to school in Ireland, is that right?
I
Right.
did.
What were some of the things that you were thinking about when you were trying to decide which university to choose? What were some of the characteristics you were looking for?
Well, I suppose, like a lot of students, I had an idea of what I wanted to study, but I didn't know exactly which subject I wanted to study. So in Ireland, there's a lot of programs that you can choose that allow you to kind of choose a general area of study. So for example, I did a program called European Studies, which was a broad-based humanities liberal arts program with 2 languages. And then that was a 4-year degree program, and as I progressed through it in my junior year, I chose a major.
Okay.
So I chose to major in political science and in Russian language. So kind of as the years went on, I got more specific, and that's kind of a question that we actually often get from American students. If I choose to go to school in Ireland, do I need to know exactly what I want to study from the beginning? And the answer is that we do have some programs that are very specific from the beginning, like say psychology, or actually professional degrees like medicine or law can actually be done as an undergraduate degree in Ireland. But we also have more broad-based programs, so where you go in broadly to a science degree and then choose a major, or an engineering degree or an arts degree. So that was something, I guess, that was on my mind. Where could I do one of those?
And that sounds very flexible, especially considering some of my preconceived notions before I started looking at Ireland. I'm more familiar with the UK, where you have to choose a major before. And one of the things about our U.S. and Canadian institutions that we work with at the College Board, you don't have to choose a major. So Ireland seems to be somewhere in between.
We're somewhere in the middle, yeah. So, in the US, generally you have 2 years of general education at the beginning of your undergraduate degree, where you try lots of different subjects. So in Ireland, it's not quite as broad as that. When you are applying to university, if you choose one of the broader programs, you need to know which area of study you were most interested in. So generally that would be either arts or engineering or sciences. And then you've got a level of flexibility to try lots of different things, maybe say try 3 different subjects within the arts and humanities and figure out which one you would like to become your major.
So in many ways, students searching for universities in Ireland, some of the same factors apply to universities in Boston, universities in Indiana, universities down south where I'm from, and places like Tennessee. You're looking at your interest, what you want to do in your future. You're looking at careers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's obviously a huge factor for
Okay.
students now. You know, if I go to school in Ireland, what is that going to prepare me for? And, you know, can I come back and work in the United States? And so the answer is that yes, Irish qualifications are recognised all over the world. So that certainly should not be a concern for any students or for parents also. And in terms of jobs and career readiness after graduation, Ireland actually has one of the highest levels of work readiness for graduates from university throughout the world. That's from a recent study that was carried out by the European Council. So that means, I guess, that, you know, we have quite a strong emphasis in our degree programs on the workplace and what students are going to go and study. In my opinion, an overseas degree is most useful for the type of student who's interested in having some kind of international perspective to their career further down the line. So, for example, you know, if you're interested in international business or international affairs and politics, one of those kind of fields that where globalization is very important. It's a great way really to differentiate yourself by being able to say, you know, I went overseas for my full degree, you know, I was able to do that, and it shows a level of flexibility and open-mindedness.
And there's a tremendous amount of U.S. companies, particularly in the tech sector,
Yeah.
who have made home in Ireland.
Yeah, definitely. We've got over 1,000 US multinational companies, or well, actually, no, 1,000 global companies based in Ireland. So for a country with a population of 4.5 million people, that's really a lot of big name companies. And, you know, say Google employs, I think now it's about 2,500 people in Dublin. And, you know, there's a whole range of new companies too, new tech companies that are opening offices in Ireland, like Airbnb, Etsy, Twitter, LinkedIn, you know, these companies that you know the names of, the up and coming ones.
So an American or a Canadian coming into the Irish higher ed system may have a leg up when they're looking at those types of careers.
Yeah, you know, and what I advise students to do when I'm talking to families generally is, you know, to be really proactive. As a full-time student in Ireland, you're allowed to work up to 20 hours per week. So, you know, it's a great opportunity to look for an internship, either through your university or, you know, independently, to approach a company that you're interested in and see if you can work as an intern. Also, students can work full-time during the summers. And can stay for a year after graduation to work in Ireland also if they'd like to. So again, I think it's a really great way to, you know, have a component of international experience on your resume when you graduate. I think that's a really valuable thing. Yeah.
And I read recently, I think it was on your website actually, which we'll give you the link later. But I read that there is more foreign investment right now in Ireland than all the BRICS countries combined, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, and so it's not necessarily a new phenomenon for us also. We have had global companies, pharmaceutical companies, financial services companies, leading names that everybody would be familiar with, coming and setting up in Ireland for many years, but certainly there does seem to be an acceleration in the number of new companies that are choosing Ireland. And there's several reasons for that, you know, from a tax perspective, but also the feedback that we get from international companies in Ireland is that the importance of the availability of skilled labour. That's really one of the most important factors for them that helps them to really make their business a success in Ireland.
And of course, operating in English.
Yes, of course.
Is so. Even though you can certainly learn a foreign language in Ireland, as you did.
Yeah.
The language of instruction is of course English.
Definitely, we get that question a lot, and it's a very good question. Interestingly, for those of you who are interested, in Ireland, you know, we speak English every day. We have a bit of an accent, as you may hear from me speaking now. We do also have our own national language, which is Gaelic. And so really where you'll notice that is on signposts. In Ireland, generally, you will see the name of a place written in English, and then below it you'll see the name written in Irish also. So that's a part of our culture, something interesting about the country.
Okay. And, well, down south in the U.S. we have accents as well, as
Yeah.
you can probably detect from mine. We had, being far away from home, studying in another country, it means different cultures, different experiences. But the downside is that you're far away from home. You're an ocean away.
Yeah.
But Ireland is, many students that I know, and when we look at things like SAT score sends or those using their AP scores, which you can use in Ireland, and we'll talk more about that in later slides. But most of the students currently applying to Ireland are coming from the east coast of the U.S., not surprisingly. However, California is sending a fair amount as well, but from the east coast of the U.S., it's actually closer than flying to California.
Yeah.
How far is it to Dublin?
Yeah, so there are direct flights from New York, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, lots of different cities, and from New York it's 6 hours.
Okay.
So it's basically the same.
Basically
as
the same to the west
flying
coast.
west.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very accessible. There's lots of flight options. There's actually direct flight that has just begun also to the west coast, to San Francisco. So it's really, we say, going across the pond.
Right. And we would be remiss if we didn't talk about funding.
Yeah. Definitely.
In this environment, many students and their families are thinking about how to fund tuition, and in Ireland, tuition tends to be less than it would be at most U.S. institutions.
It can be.
It can be.
It can be. So if you were the type of student that's looking at going to a private not-for-profit school in the US, like say a liberal arts school or university out of state, then Irish tuition is relatively very affordable. So for example, I think we actually have some figures on the slides further along the line that we can maybe talk about in more detail. But
Sure.
In terms of tuition, if you're talking about tuition for 1 year of undergraduate study in the humanities or liberal arts, you're talking about around $13,000 per year. And then you've got living expenses and accommodation or housing on top of that also. Housing generally for American students, when they come over in their first year, they're guaranteed housing on campus if they would
Okay.
like it. So that takes a lot of the kind of, I suppose, the work out of finding a place to live. You don't need to worry about that. So, I mean, overall, as a rule of thumb, when I'm talking to parents and students, normally we say that you need to budget on about $32,000
Mm-hmm.
for tuition, books, housing, like living expenses, food, etc., flights home, like 2 flights per year,
Yes.
and also health insurance. We get this question a lot about health insurance. It's much more affordable in Ireland. It's normally about €150 per year for the
Okay.
student.
Wow.
So you're talking about like coming in at under $200 per year, but obviously that's a big differential with the US, and so people do tend to like to have that number as
Okay.
well. So.
And that's great advice, and we will talk in more detail about specific tuition numbers in further slides.
Mm-hmm.
But in this context of how you choose, it's very comparable to most U.S. institutions, even in state, for some students. So that is one major factor that most students are looking at. But we talked about housing options, cost of tuition, but also admission requirements, and that's where
Yeah.
I wanted to note that every Irish university recognizes SAT as an admission credential.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're applying to the U.S. schools that would ask for an SAT or another type of admission test, you can use those same credentials to apply to Irish universities. And in fact, AP, which many of you are taking AP courses, can also apply to some universities for credit and placement. For other universities, it's an evidence of rigor and can help toward admission.
Yeah, I think that the latter
Yeah.
is probably true for the majority of universities. So they look really favourably on having completed AP courses. You know, particularly where they're relevant to the subject that the student is interested in applying for, but they're not necessarily going to be awarded credit for those APs at Irish universities.
Right. And remind me, how many institutions or programs offer 4 years versus 3 years?
So there is a mixture. The majority of programs tend to be 4 years. We do have a number of programs that are 3 years. They tend to be in the humanities and liberal arts.
Okay.
And there's kind of a mixture. So several universities will offer both 4-year and 3-year programs, and it really depends on the discipline that the student is studying,
Right.
whether it's 3 or 4 years. Often the other thing that's I think worth pointing out is that a lot of students in Ireland tend to do a study abroad experience also.
Oh, yes.
So what we find is with many of the American students who come and choose to study abroad in Ireland, often they end up studying abroad again from Ireland, because we have this program in the European Union called Erasmus, the
Yes.
Erasmus Mundus program. And so essentially what that is a free exchange program to encourage students from all over Europe to go and spend a semester or one academic year at another university or institution in another European country.
Wonderful.
So, for example, if you know you're doing a 3-year degree or 4-year arts degree, you may decide to go for your junior year and spend it in Paris or Madrid or you know another or Florence, for example.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
No, that adds as another element of global, of having
Yeah.
a truly international experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And before we move on to tuition and fees, as the slide said, I was also wondering if you could answer, for students, of course students can use their financial aid dollars that, like FAFSA,
Yes. Yes.
to apply, and they can apply those funds to Irish tuition the same way they would for US tuition. They can do the same for many Canadian universities and many UK as well.
Definitely. So US federal loans transfer to Irish universities. They've all been approved to administer those loans. And as you mentioned, when students fill out their FAFSA form, that form applies to an Irish university exactly the same way that it would apply to a US university. On that point, I guess it might be good to just talk a little bit about financial aid,
Yes.
because often, you know, we get that question kind of linked together. So there are a number of scholarships that are available for international students. You know, the best way to find out information about those, I think, is to use the Education in Ireland website as a central resource. So we have a page on our website that talks about all of the different scholarship programs available across the country. And then I always advise students, once you are submitting your application to a particular university, it's worth just asking the question again and talking with the international office, because sometimes, you know, scholarships change on a year-by-year basis and things like that. So that would be my advice in terms of financial aid.
But there is merit aid available from the universities itself.
It is merit-based, yeah, exactly. And so to varying degrees, there are varying degrees of scholarships. You know, some of them are for specific disciplines,
Sure.
etc. So
And probably quite competitive, but
They are.
is available.
yeah.
Great. So now let's move on to tuition and fees, other costs to consider. Let's talk about that in a little bit more detail than what
Sure.
we talked about before. So room and board.
Yeah, so room and board is an interesting one. I always like talking about this because it's a little bit different in Ireland than it is in the US. Generally, students will have apartment-style living on campus. So what that means is that you have a shared kitchen and living area, and then there will be a number of rooms for students. So say generally maybe 4 rooms. Sometimes it's a shared bathroom, or sometimes it's actually an ensuite. So your own private bathroom. And we don't, in terms of board, we don't generally have meal plans in the same way that you would have a meal plan at a US university. It's very common for Irish students and all students in Ireland to cook. And so, you know, this is often kind of, you know, something new for students, but it's a great experience. You know, all of the students go through it together, learning how to cook pasta and, you know, use the microwave, all those different things. And also then there's obviously cafeterias on all of the campuses. So if you want to eat out or eat at different cafeterias on campus, you can do that too. So that's kind of how, I guess, it's similar to US universities, but maybe like a little bit different.
Okay, very helpful. Yeah. And books and supplies, computers, transportation, they would usually want to go back to their home at least twice a year. Yeah. So that should be considered. But what about within Ireland? How can you talk about that? Because on weekends they may not want to stay in Galway or Dublin.
That's probably one of my favourite topics because it's really easy to explore Ireland, and it's a very safe country. We're voted in one of the top 10 safest countries in the world by the Global Peace Index.
Okay.
It's very easy to explore without a car. So we have bus tours, very inexpensive, or you can take the train. I think for me the best way, if I was starting out myself again as a student on campus, the best thing to do is really to join some societies, I think, at the clubs and societies at the beginning of the academic year, and maybe participate in some of their trips to get you started.
Okay.
You know, so often there's like a surf trip to County Clare in Ireland, things like that. And then once you're kind of, you know, settled in, start planning some trips with friends. To drive from Dublin to Galway, so Dublin is on the east coast and Galway is on the west coast, it's less than 3 hours, and so it's very accessible and easy to get around. Normally students will do a lot of trips in Ireland at the beginning and then start to explore Europe. So we have a low-cost airline called Ryanair that's based out of Ireland, and it is it's the largest low-cost airline in Europe.
Okay.
So for a very, very small amount of money, you can buy airfares to, you know, cities in Italy, in Spain, in France, Netherlands, and so it's really a great opportunity to get out there and get a lot of exposure to other cultures, other languages, and in an inexpensive way.
And before we talk more about cost, that brings me to college culture. Mm-hmm. So many students in the U.S. And many students from outside the U.S., one reason that they're attracted to U.S. universities is the culture beyond academics. Can you talk a little bit about the culture at an Irish university typically?
Definitely. So there's two things, I guess. Clubs and societies are very, very vibrant on Irish campuses, and also sports. So in terms of clubs and societies, we don't have the concept of Greek life. So we don't have sororities or fraternities or anything like that. Basically, all of our clubs and societies, you can join them. So as a student, when you arrive on campus, you generally, in the very first week, all of the clubs and societies will have a little table in a central part of the university, and you can go up and find out information and join up. And I mean, really, they span everything from debating to food clubs, International Student Society, film and movie societies, charities. So, you know, there's really a lot of opportunities. And then with the sports, I think for students who are concerned maybe that, you know, they won't be able to maintain their fitness or athletics when they move, certainly I don't think that should be a concern. You know, there's excellent sporting facilities. For example, University of Limerick is the home to the Irish rugby team. They train using their sports facilities. They're excellent. And you know, rowing, rugby, soccer, you know, you name it. Often there's clubs for American sports like baseball also. And then there's the Irish sports that people often don't know about. That's a nice kind of way to maybe you know, try a bit of the Irish culture again.
What are some of the Irish sports?
So we have two, well, we have Yeah, so there's two different types. There's Gaelic football,
Hmm.
which is kind of like a cross maybe between rugby and soccer, I guess.
Okay.
It's fast. And then hurling, which always gets some laughs in the US because obviously hurling can mean something different also. But that's its name. So hurling is it's a field sport with a stick and a hard ball, and it's basically the ball is hit through the air, and it's apparently it's the fastest field sport on earth. Probably going to have some people typing in there saying no, it's not, but I'm pretty sure that it is. So that's really fun, and obviously they're for men and women.
Right.
So that's a nice way to just try something that you wouldn't otherwise.
So we'll also, in a second, talk about academics, because most students that are looking at universities in Ireland would be very interested in what the most popular majors are, and what you would recommend
Yeah.
would be the disciplines of study that
Mhm.
that a student could really take advantage of in Ireland. But before we do so, let's close out talking about, we've talked about financial aid and scholarships, but we did receive one question while we were talking, a point of clarification. In purchasing health insurance in Ireland, or do you need your own? What is considered proof? Could you address that real quick?
Yeah, so generally this will be, so all students have to have health insurance when they're enrolling. That's part of the pre-orientation kind of process. And the advice is that either the student has Irish health insurance, which as I said is €150 per year,
Mhm.
or some families may choose to extend their American insurance so that it covers the student in Ireland or internationally if the student's going to be travelling outside of Ireland also. And so really either of those options is okay, but the university will advise exactly what proof of insurance they require. Generally, I think a copy of the insurance certificate for the student when they're enrolling.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned safety before.
Yeah.
And as parents, that's probably less of an issue with students, even though I'm sure that they look at it. But
Yeah.
among parents, that's extremely important. We find that when we poll parents both in the U.S. as well as outside the U.S., that always comes up, often even before things like tuition ranges or even academic quality.
Of course.
Is it a safe environment? And as you said, Ireland is one of the safest environments in the
Yeah,
world.
definitely. I mean, I completely empathise with that point of view. It's obviously your child going overseas. You
Sure.
want to know that they're safe. And one other thing I suppose to point out too is that all the Irish universities have health centres on campus. So for things like, like a GP, call it a GP in the US as well, like
Yes.
general practitioner.
Yes.
So a regular, doctor's appointment, that's generally free for students, or
Okay.
else at a very, very small reduced cost. So that's also available on the campus.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's talk about, again, tuition in Ireland. So the average undergraduate course fees for non-European Union students, so we are talking about US and Canadian
Yeah.
here. It depends on the subject. So this is a little bit different than what we see in the US for undergraduate study, where typically
Yeah.
there's one tuition range regardless of areas of study. But in Ireland that's different, as you had mentioned earlier, but maybe we'll talk about it in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you can see that the differential primarily there is between subjects that require specialised equipment
Okay.
and those that don't. So generally, subjects where you would be using a laboratory with equipment obviously that is expensive as an overhead for the university, then the tuition is a little higher than for arts and humanities or business, where you're using lecture facilities and you don't need specialised equipment.
Understood.
So as you can see, there's a band there. Obviously we're talking in general terms across all of the universities, but I think the figures you have there are a pretty good indication of the tuition.
And we wanted to reiterate that all 7 universities in Ireland are approved to receive U.S. federal funds and have federal school codes for FAFSA applications. And in addition, all of them, as you're applying for admission, all 7 have what we call College Board's university codes, or you might hear the term designated institution codes, so that on the drop-down menu when you're sending your SAT scores or when you're sending your AP scores, you can choose the Irish universities, and so that they can receive your official scores, and these are shared with the Common application. Do you know if any Irish universities are currently in the Common App?
Currently not.
Currently
no.
not. Okay.
So the applications go directly to the institution that you would like to apply to, and indicating the program that you're interested in.
Okay.
So some students will choose to apply to 2 or 3 Irish universities.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the higher ed system is made up of a university sector, institutes of technology, as well as private independent colleges. We've kind of been over some of this, and that all 7 Irish universities are ranked in the top 3% of universities worldwide. We've had several university rankings. U.S. News and World Report has a world ranking, QS,
Yes.
As well as THE,
Yes,
Times Higher Ed. And not that rankings, at the College Board, we advise students to look well beyond rankings, but they often are a starting place. So Irish universities certainly appear highly in those rankings.
Yeah, definitely. And it's as you say. I think the most important thing for me is that students find a university that's the right fit for them.
Right.
In terms of academics, definitely, the subject area that they're interested in and the approach to teaching, the type of program that they want to be a part of. And then also they should look at the kind of ethos, the student life on campus. One thing that I highly recommend, if families are in a position to do this, is to take a visit. And the international offices at Irish universities are very, very happy to put together a customised tour of the campus so that you can actually see the facilities. Sometimes we hear about families who have gone to Ireland on vacation and made their own tour. Don't do that because that's fine, but you'll only get to see the outside of everything. So if you make contact beforehand, you can see the outside and also the inside of the various facilities or lecture halls, cafeteria, things like that. I think that's very important. If in your position, that's what I would want to do to make sure I find the right fit.
And as I believe we mentioned earlier, but I want to reiterate that Irish or U.S. students don't need a visa.
No, they do not.
To study in Ireland. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so US and Canadian students don't need a visa to study in Ireland. The process is that you will register once per calendar year with the Garda Immigration Bureau. And that's something that all international students are doing. So basically, again, that's part of the pre-orientation where you'll be walked through how that works. It's not a very complex process, but it is something that needs to be done annually.
And there's a 1-year stay-back option for international students after they graduate.
Yeah, exactly. After graduation, students can stay and either find a job or start a business. We have a very vibrant culture of startups.
Okay.
And a lot of supports, because if you think about it, Ireland always has to look overseas and look internationally because it's a relatively small domestic market.
Sure.
So we really have a lot of different supports for people who wish to start businesses.
Okay, and we've mentioned those global companies in Ireland, including Google as well as others, and the internship component is often incorporated in university study.
Yeah, that's another thing, coming back to fit and finding a program that's a great fit for you. You may want to take that into account and look specifically for a program that will place you for a semester or for an academic year in a company for credit. That is something that's included in many programs.
Now, but you're also surrounded by a number of international students beyond those from your own country. Ireland is attracting students from Asia, from other parts of Europe, because of both because of Erasmus, but also because of the Bologna Accords. That students are finding their way to Ireland. And currently, what is the percentage of international students among the 7 universities in Ireland, approximately?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, so overall in the country it's about 10%, but for some universities it's actually 20%.
Okay.
So there's kind of a variance there. So, I mean, we have, as you say, there's a huge number of international students. In terms of American students, there's 2 different things. So we tend to see a lot of students who are coming for study abroad experience.
Yes.
So last year we had about 7,000 Americans who did study abroad for a semester or a year in Ireland, and then a further 1,000 who came to study full-time in full-time programs. So there's definitely a lot of American students, and then the next largest group is Chinese students.
Okay.
But as you say, I mean, because of Erasmus, there's lots of students from all over Europe, from India, from the Middle East, from Brazil, really all over the place. I think last year there was students from 180 countries.
Yes,
So-
that outside of that top country list, it looks like almost a third are from elsewhere.
Yeah,
Uh, but many coming from other parts of Europe, but China being after the U.S.
hmm
It sounds like an exciting environment. I wish I was applying for college now.
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that actually, on that point, one thing that surprises people sometimes is that 44% of the population of Dublin is under 25.
Wow.
So it's one of the youngest cities in Europe, and
Okay.
that, as you can imagine, that makes for a very vibrant art scene, music
Mhm.
scene, culture, drama. So yeah, it's a very engaging place to be a student.
Wow. So popular fields of study. Among the students from the U.S. studying in Ireland, humanities, the fine arts, and applied arts dominate.
Yeah, more and more we're seeing applications for science subjects also, but certainly looking retrospectively, there is a lot of interest in the humanities and arts. I think we see that primarily as well from the students who come for a semester or come for a year.
Right.
The students who come for their full degree tend to be a little bit more dispersed across the various disciplines.
Okay.
Yeah.
For health science and business management.
Yeah, we have a lot of students who are studying in the health sciences, and then business and STEM fields also.
Okay. So this data applies to students even if they're on the short term. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
And with the tradition of literature in Ireland, I know there's a tremendous amount of U.S. students coming over for a semester or a summer abroad, and for example, studying Irish literature, studying James Joyce, studying
Yeah.
others. So that would account for that. What looks to be almost perhaps 65 or 70% of those, but when you're looking at students for a full degree program,
It
it's
would
much
look
more
a little
dispersed.
different.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, the interesting thing about Ireland now is that it kind of has this meeting of the old and the new. Obviously Ireland has a reputation for, excellence in the arts,
Sure.
the creative arts, literature, as you've mentioned, in theatre, music, and film. But more and more, because of this very large base of global companies that we have in Ireland, and because of the fact that we're proactively encouraging startup companies, there's a huge emphasis in the education system on science subjects
Mhm.
and math subjects, and so we're seeing definitely kind of this shift for increased applications to science-based programs too.
Wonderful. And AP and SAT. So we talked about how College Board programs that apply as you look to U.S. university study can also be employed in the context of Ireland. Worldwide, AP and SAT are often accepted, whether you're looking at the UK, Canada, increasingly in places like Hong Kong, Singapore, and Korea. But Ireland, we're seeing more and more score sends. Students actively sending their SAT and AP scores. And we talked a little bit about how Irish admission officers are looking at that. Maybe you can extrapolate a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose, looking at the application process, generally Irish universities will look at the students' GPA,
Right.
SAT scores, possibly APs, and then also a personal statement, talking about why the student is passionate about, a particular subject area or this particular university. So, the Irish universities have codes, as you say, allocated by the College Board, and so I guess the process is very much is very close to what you would do when applying directly to a US university.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and we have on the screen examples of those Irish universities with those codes, and in that drop down. I would like to explore a little bit more because I think some of the students here may be interested in some of the differences in the U.S., especially among liberal arts institutions. They use what we refer to as a holistic process.
Yes.
And even some of our larger state institutions that may not use holistic, it's very much multivariable. So describe a little bit more exactly how a student would stand out in the Irish process.
That's a great question. So as I said, the students apply directly to the university. I think the process is very focused on grades. Okay, so that's definitely true. Generally, the university will have particular grade level that they're looking for a particular program. So that's kind of first and foremost. But in addition to that, there is the personal statement, and that they're really looking for a student who is passionate, enthusiastic, adventurous. They're looking for students who really want to have an international experience and feel ready to do that. Going overseas for a full degree is not necessarily for every student, and so I guess they're looking for that level of interest and enthusiasm for that experience.
Ambition, it sounds like, is coming into play definitely.
There. So, and I mean, the other things like the APs, they will be looked upon very favourably also. As I mentioned, they're generally not for credit, but they're seen as being impressive, definitely, along with the application.
So again, it's not so far off than what our students are accustomed to and what they're being advised by their counselors in the U.S. context. But in the Irish context, it sounds like a little bit more emphasis on the transcript.
Yes.
That they would be getting from their high school.
Yeah.
That would have grades allocated, and their activities would be evidenced there.
Yeah.
They would also, and any awards would probably be looked at. The honors classes they took, or
I mean, I think that they could be mentioned in the personal statement, definitely. But first and foremost, it's the grades, and then the kind of demonstrating the fact that they're passionate about this
and that
opportunity.
would be done in the personal statement.
Yeah.
So the personal statement really gives the platform or the opportunity for a student to showcase that aspiration,
yes,
other types of talents or interest that would allow them to showcase why they would be a best fit for a particular Irish university.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess that maybe the emphasis is a little less on the extracurricular in the Irish admissions process. It's grades first, and then the personal statement can be used to showcase those things.
And certainly if an SAT score of a certain range or a high AP score can supplement that. But transcript and personal statement are typically most prioritized in the system.
Yeah, definitely the grades. And I guess it's worth pointing out the application, the timeline. So applications to Irish universities, they generally open around the 1st of November, and they stay open until the end of March in general. So it'll vary a little depending on which university you're applying to, but that's again a good rule of thumb. Also, many of the universities will have late applications into next summer. One thing I would point out is that even though you can apply up until a later date, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wait until then. In fact, we would very much encourage students to apply early, because applications are on a rolling basis, and that means that as the year progresses, places are filling. So, to make sure you have the best possibility of getting an acceptance, a letter of offer, we would encourage students to apply early.
Okay, thanks. And where are students sending their scores? So Trinity University typically has the most, but followed closely behind University College Dublin, the National University of Ireland Galway, and others that you can see on this list. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the distinctions between these universities. I'm sure I'm sure there's distinctions between them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of the fit, each of the cities that and towns that the universities are located in are going to offer a slightly different student experience. Actually, that's something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. I'm giving a video presentation about the application process at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. And we're going to look at each of the towns and cities in Ireland and kind of how they differ. In terms of the Irish universities and how they themselves differ, across the board they're generally all comprehensive universities, which means that they offer every discipline, every subject, but certainly they will have different approaches to history or to political science, and I think the best way to identify the program that's the best fit for you is to use the program finder tool that we have on the Education in Ireland website. Basically that is it's a fantastic tool because it has information about all of the programs available across the Republic of Ireland, so you can specify that you're interested in, for taking again psychology as an example. If you type in psychology and indicate that you're interested in undergraduate programs, you'll get the links to each of the available programs, and then it's really a matter of having a look and seeing which one you feel is the best fit for you.
Great. And in terms of resources that the College Board provides, collegeboard.org/AP International, we have information about universities around the world, and we have a page devoted to Ireland, but we link to your site. Excellent. Because we are a big admirer of what you guys offer, and we want to help students get to the right place. And definitely we encourage you to log on tonight, a couple hours later, to watch Michelle talk about to talk about the individual institutions and some of the differences.
Yeah,
there.
definitely. And one other thing that I think is a great idea, perhaps, if you can't get over to visit one of the Irish campuses, but you really want to get a feeling for what it would be like to be a student there, we actually have a blog, and we have about 40 student ambassadors from 7 different countries who are posting videos and writing articles and blogs about their time in Ireland. So they write about everything from how to celebrate Thanksgiving in Ireland to the best grocery stores or where to get a good coffee, all those different types of things. So I think that that's a great resource, and that's also a link from our website, educationinireland.com.
Which we're highlighting now. This is the page that you would find, and again, we encourage you to explore that on your own. Other sources of information besides Education in Ireland. Well, you have, again, your Facebook page,
Yes.
which I've liked today.
Oh, excellent.
And your Student Ambassador blog. You have a Twitter account.
We do have a Twitter account also, yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. And then the university websites themselves is a great way to see what the universities have to offer, how they express their own culture through that website.
Yeah, definitely. And the university websites are really an excellent resource. A lot of them offer virtual tours of campus, and most importantly as well, they have the contact details for representatives in the international offices, and they are so experienced at counselling and advising international students. If you have questions and think you want to apply, I would really encourage you to get the contact details and give them a call. And also we have all of the 7 universities are going to be presenting throughout today, giving video presentations, and so it's also great to log on and watch those either today or even subsequently. They'll still be available here on the College Week Live site.
Great. And then also Fulbright commissions and foundations. The International Council for International Students is also a great resource.
Definitely, yeah.
And we do have a question that regarding do Irish universities require that scores come from the College Board? Typically they do. There may be some programs that will accept your scores as sent. But certainly the College Board encourages that the scores are securely sent from the College Board so that we can ensure that they're valid. And because all the universities have set up their codes, many of them can receive it electronically, so we save postage. Otherwise, we're sending it directly from here to them. But you could contact the admission office directly for that information. Then we have a question: could you please give the link that we spoke of before? And we will go on to links in one slide. But before I go on to that slide, we encourage you to learn more by attending an online fair such as this. This is a great step, I hope.
Yeah.
I hope you've gotten good information from Michelle and from the College Board. Speak as Michelle just recommended to an admission representative. Ask about financial aid opportunities. Even though those merit scholarships are very selective and competitive, they are available.
Yeah.
So pursue those. Find out if there are students in your area who may have studied at universities. Irish students, I find, are quite mobile even after they graduate.
Very much so. That's a great point. And also, the student ambassadors are very happy to be contacted. You can contact them directly on the blog site. Or we also have previous ambassadors from other years that are still happy to be contacted, and there may even be somebody, you know, who lives in your area or your city. So that's always nice to actually be able to talk to them about why they made the decision that they made to go to Ireland.
And so here's some web links. So www.educationinireland.com. Looking at the College Board website, international.collegeboard.org. Our major college planning site, which includes every accredited university in the U.S., as well as some of the best universities outside the U.S., and we will very soon have more Irish universities because several have joined, including Trinity University. We're very proud to be a College Board member, so they will be included on the site. Register for the SAT at sat.org, and then for the Advanced Placement Program, exploreap.org. If you have questions for the College Board, feel free to email us anytime at international@collegeboard.org. And for Michelle's group, do you have a general email or?
Yeah, we do indeed. So you can either contact us via the website, or you can use the email address eduireland@enterprise-ireland.com. So that's eduireland@enterprise-ireland.com.
And we do hope you log in approximately 2 hours to see Michelle speak more in depth about these particular institutions. In the meantime, we're going to end a little bit early. Unless you have additional questions, please post them in the next couple of seconds.
I think there may be one more.
Is there one more?
Can you please give the link for the tool that you spoke of, helping to pick proper college fit? So yeah, that's a great question. And so that tool, if you go onto our website, educationinireland.com, and if you follow the link "What can I study?", you'll be brought to the Program Finder tool. And then in that box you type the subject area that you think you're interested in. You can choose a specific city if you want to, or a specific university or college, and then you just need to indicate the level of study, so whether it's undergraduate or postgraduate study, and you will get a list of all of the available programs and links to those programs for further information about them.
And if there are no other questions, let me check real quick. We'll end about 5 minutes early, but I want to thank you again for joining us today on Ireland Day,
On Ireland Day.
on Ireland Education Day.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Michelle for joining me for a wonderful conversation about this important topic. Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Clay. Thanks for having me in.
Take care, everyone.